Hey everybody, Quantum here, and in this video I wanted to give you a quick update on the Sapphire, Amethyst, Merlin toolbox. I recently just posted a video. It was like Friday, basically the day of the DLC in Toronto, August 23rd. But this video outlines some unique points of interaction that I did not have in the first iteration of this build, and I do think that this does fundamentally change this deck. It just goes to show you how much versatility there is now in the game with 5 sets. A lot of these ink pairings that even weren't viable before, like this particular one with Sapphire and Amethyst, now being viable, but also having multiple ways to build it. You don't always have to say, well, if I build this ink pairing, it has to go, this route, like Emerald Steel has to go discarded. It's not always like that now, so it's very interesting to see. But some of the changes that we opted to make from the last build is using things like Chernobog followers and the library now, or library. Yes, the R is there for those for the one who made the comment on my last video. But the Chernobog followers is very interesting because in this particular deck list, if you play this on field and it survives, if you are able to play the library at a following turn later on, you can actually move Chernobog followers to it, and this card states that whenever a character is banished while here, you may draw a card. So when you quest with the Chernobog followers, you can banish it, draw a card for the Chernobog, and then draw a card for it leaving this particular location. In essence, that is extremely powerful. Not only that, if you end up using support like the Basil and the Chicha, the 2 characters in this deck that run support, you move them to the library, and if your opponent opts to take them out, you'll be drawing cards off of it. Not only that, the library also provides excellent insulation from things like Be Prepared. And so this deck can very comfortably, and this is what Sapphire Amethyst wants to do, right? Very comfortably go wide, and you play a lot of characters, 46. We used to play 50, but now we're down to 46. But you go very wide on your board, you put everything on the library, your opponent has to out this, otherwise if they do some kind of board wipe, like a Be Prepared, you will be drawing, a ton of cards off your cards getting banished. If they do something like cheeky, like let's say Kita Under the Sea, you will not draw the cards and you will lose those characters, but hopefully that doesn't happen to you. I mean, a deck can't play around everything. Nonetheless, this interaction in and of itself is very powerful. The Chicha being able to draw off of things like the Tipo, off of the Donald Duck Flat-Footed, which, we've opted to include 3 copies of. No Mickeys, no Fishbone Quills. We instead opt to run Great Stone Dragon because, again, we play so many characters. Our Inkwell, or our discard pile, will be loaded up with characters that you'll be able to use to get free ink. Yes, it comes in Exerted, but this deck can afford to run a little bit of a longer control game. And again, if you watch this gameplay video, we actually outline kind of how we use Great Stone Dragon in order to consistently proc the Chicha to draw additional cards. So it is very powerful. The Tipo, I will say, amazing card in certain applications, and at least in this deck, the card really does fill a role, being able to ramp you early, and you don't really care about the card advantage because you'll be able to hopefully make it up with all of your draw cards, the library, friends on the other side, Merlin rabbits, bouncing the rabbits, etc. And the Chicha, of course, you have like several different draw engines in this deck. And then again, multiple points of interaction like Chernobog using the library to draw 2 instead of 1, using your Elsa when you drop her to move her to library, and then if you challenge with her and she gets banished, you draw a card. Same with Fox. So you have a lot of unique points of interaction. Any characters you challenge into, you're just going to be able to if they get banished, you draw cards off of the library. So this is a card I did not include in the original build and what I opted to include now. Our uninkable count is still fairly low at 15, so the deck should be fairly accessible and easy to play. And even so, some of the uninkables are very low to the ground, like 2 cost, 4 cost. So they're not really locking you out, being unable to play. If you do see multiples of these, you'll likely just be able to play them out. I think there were turns where I just skipped inking, or I didn't ink twice in a turn, let's say, because I just had uninkables in hand that I couldn't ink, or I didn't want to ink, but I could always ink off Stone Dragon, or I could just ink something else for turn if I wanted to. The real incredible thing with this deck, not that it really will come up too often, but if it does, if it reaches this point in the game, you probably win already. But if you do get 2 Stone Dragons on field with the Chicha or 2, you're drawing cards for free, and you don't even have to ink from your hand in order to proc Chicha, right? So it's an insanely powerful interaction in that way. But the Tipo being able to ramp you early is really incredible as well, because in this matchup that's posted here in this video right now, it was a Ruby Emerald deck, and the opponent got a Diablo Shift out on turn 2. We went first though, we were on the play, and we were able to on turn 3 go into the Tipo to get the extra ink, so we were on 4 ink while the opponent was still on 2. It passes back to them. They ink, the Diablo remains exerted, so they're going to draw off of our draws, but on turn 4, we're able to drop the Elsa, right? So they only got 2 draws off of the Diablo. We still maintained a lot of advantage, and the Elsa was able to out the Diablo very, very early. I will say that Diablo does present a bit of a problem for this deck. You do need a lot of counterplay towards it, and the only real answers that you have are this Elsa and a Let It Go, which is susceptible to getting ripped out of your hand by an Ursula Deceiver. So that is one thing I would say that this deck might struggle with, and that's why I tested mostly against Emerald. Against other mid-range decks, this deck can really just dominate to a certain extent, just because you are able to, even if you're disrupted in the early game, you're still able to generate so much ink because you're double inking with the Great Stone Dragon, with the Tipo, with the Donald Duck, that you'll be able to play out multiple interactions in a turn. You'll be able to draw a lot of cards. You'll be able to control board states by just challenging. And these support abilities actually come in handy quite a bit. In this video, I think I used support a total of 3 times in order to out opposing characters on board. Like I used the Chicha in order to boost up a Mim Snake to out this Robin Hood Sharpshooter, which has 4 toughness, because the Chicha giving the Madam Mim Snake +2 strength would make it a 5/3, making me able to run over the Robin Hood, and then the Mim Snake would also survive, right? Because it's a 3/3, and the Robin Hood only deals 1 damage back. So there are a lot of unique interactions like that you can use these support abilities, like boosting up Madam Mim Elephant. I've used the support to also boost up the Merlin twice. I used him to make him a 5/3, and then I used both the Basil and the Chicha to make him a 7/7, which is crazy, right? And this is a card that when you shift him on play, you can use him right away. So if you do have those support characters in play, you quest with them, you give this support. Now this is a huge body that can just run over anything, and with the 7 willpower, it can likely survive, whatever it runs into. So there's a lot of really cool interactions here. Boosting up overstated cards like the Goat makes it run over anything as well. And that's kind of the synergy with the deck. I cut the Cuscos down. I think I maybe was running like 3 or 4 of them before. But the main reason why is if you really do need access to this, which is really only to out a very important item that the opponent might have, because even with locations, you can just run into them, that you can search it out with the Merlin if you really need to. So you shift Merlin, you search out the Cusco, you search out the Elsa, you search out the Rush Elsa, which I did in this case in order to take out an opponent's threat. You search out a Fox to play, to bounce back the Merlin so that you can use them again, so you get a Rush character. Like there's so many cool interactions with the deck. And then the one other tech card that I opted to include here is one Latch Ditch Effort, because what this card can do, if you search this with Merlin and you have enough ink to play this after you've you've shifted the Merlin, so you'd need 8 ink in total, right? So you'd pay 5 for the shift Merlin, you search this, you would need 3 ink left over in order to play this out. You can give that Merlin +2 Challenger, which would make him a 5/7, and then if you have support, you can boost him up even further. But the ability to exert an opposing character can come in real handy, especially in the late game when your opponent may be threatening game if they were on a faster deck than you, since you are a slower control deck. And so again, while you don't have very apparent removal like Steel and Ruby does, there are a lot of unique things that you can do with a deck like this in order to really control games. But yeah, let me know what you think. If you do like this particular iteration, it does, from my testing, it did play fundamentally different than the first version that I built. I think this one is much better, mainly because I didn't realize how much synergy you get with the library in this deck, and it's just absolutely crazy how much advantage you can generate. And then once you get the Stone Dragons in rotation, like the amount of ink and just all the interactions that you have on board, it's just absolutely crazy. So yeah, really fun deck to play. Held its weight from the matches that I tested. But again, if you made it this far in the video, let me know what you think. And again, the link to the deck list will be in the description. Thank you again for watching, though. Quantum is out.